Hello, hello. Yeah, real quick. We all know about the Heart of Darkness, don't we? Uh, I at least, I'm expecting this book to be incredibly familiar to most people in booktube. So I just wanted to sort of say, yeah, I've read the Heart of Darkness today. I just read through this since yesterday and finished today. It's been around for a while. I just happen to have a translation in Spanish, and since Joseph Conrad doesn't seem to be the kind of author that I would be missing out on a lot for not reading on the original, I decided to just read on this translation. I found the translation to not be very accurate, as every now and then I like to check and compare between when I speak both the original and translation I'm reading. I like to compare. So I'm not really happy with this translation, but I enjoyed a lot the reading. It's been on my list for a while because Apocalypse Now is my favorite war movie, and it's, in my opinion, one of the best movies ever made. I don't think that's even a polemic thing to say. So, and yeah, I mean, like many people would defend this book as one of the best books as well. I think I would have loved this book way more if I would have read it a while ago. I mean, like a year ago or something like that. At the moment, I did enjoy this book a lot. This is just in the interior of Africa. This captain of a steamship, going upriver in Congo, that then hears about this trader that's basically become part of a tribe or something like that, or just like basically native, um, called Kurtz, and he keeps sort of like finding traces of this man and hearing about him as he keeps going upriver. This upriver is sort of like that he's sort of like as he approaches um, the location where this man is supposed to be, Kurtz, everything turns darker. The title, The Heart of Darkness, is actually much more graphic and descriptive than one would expect at first sight, because it's not just dark in the geographical sense. Definitely, there is a sort of like there are descriptions of the place as a place that is just like dark, visually dark. But I think it's also very metaphorical. It's sort of like getting into the heart of the human psyche, of the human condition. Yeah, I mean, there are many readings that can be made of this book. Many of them I find them a bit like over reading, so I'm just gonna omit those. I also don't think that this book is about colonialism or post-colonialism at all. I think that there is that that is sort of like the set of this story, but it's not the story that is being trying to be told here. This is clearly a story about civilization and about the lack thereof, and about the response of an individual that is not being policed, that is not being normalized through cultural interaction, through convention. Kurtz is a man that's completely isolated from society and everything familiar, and in that detachment from that society, what he finds is the horror. And interestingly enough, the horror that he perpetrates, that he creates, that he imposes on others, happens to be also the instrument of his own micro society, his own state. He has a number of devotees. You could call that a cult, but I don't think it's very different from a state in that sense. There are set of axioms that are followed. The head of the state, he would be sort of like that, the head, the dictator, whatever you want to call him. And it's interesting that in losing order, in losing that not only figures of authority but also moral references, for being so isolated, he creates through horror uh, his own his own orphaned society. Maybe I'm like rambling a little bit here. It does make sense on my mind. But yeah, I mean, we get all of this through the account of Marlowe, Charles Marlowe, which is a very neutral um, first-hand account. This is written as if it were sort of like a memoir, and I definitely like that position of observer. Not only observer, but not fully devoted to the events. Not fully like incredibly suspicious and even a bit of a cynic. And I like that because I don't think it would have been so interesting if we just had another sort of like if even the first account was as committed to enhance the figure of this sort of like entity, this man that is being elevated among the savages and among the people around that haven't had any contact with him. So we get a critical eye, we get a critical perspective, which is what many of like what the reader himself should be doing as well. Is sort of like questioning, what is this Kurtz guy? Why, what is exactly giving him this level of respect and devotion from so many people throughout the book that keeps sort of like auguring his appearance, his presentation, and yet we almost never get up to until the end, until the very end of the book. We don't get to know this guy. I think that's also quite powerful. By the time we know him, it's only a few. It's only a few words that he had to say before the book ends. And yeah, I think that's also very powerful. I did like this book a lot. I will reread it. I think this book deserves a reread. I think the movie is better than the book, but I think the book is a much better reflection on what it tries to be, which is the state of in what way does the human condition respond to a state of moral orphanhood, of cultural orphanhood, of lack of orientation or reference that appeals to something greater than oneself. In the moment the man is left by himself, all that he can find to structure his reality is the horror. And I wish I could read some lines because some of the reflections here are very interesting and very beautiful. But this is in Spanish, so I'm not gonna be able to. Nevertheless, I highly recommend this book. I'm not super. I think I read it a bit too fast for this kind of book. I feel like, I'm just gonna hold my. I mean, I've said a lot, but I'm sort of like in my head, I'm holding all of these thoughts and waiting for a reread. But yeah, I did like it a lot, and I do recommend it. Good night.